Develop a fortune state of mind. Time for a date with. Time for a date with. A date with the Dorseys.
Hello, and welcome to yet another Date with the Dorseys. I am Dr. Jatan and
Floyd Dorsey.
the fourth.
Gotta love it.
And together we make Dim Dorn Dorseys. Thank you all for joining us yet again for another hot topic.
Very hot, sizzling.
Sizzling. We just took it out the oven, off the stove, wherever you prefer, but it's ready. It's ready for you. And if it's your first time joining us, shame on you, but we have plenty of episodes for you to catch up and follow us and support us and all of those different things. But since you've caught us on this episode, I want to give you a little background on what you stumbled upon. So Date with the Dorseys is all about encouraging a fortune state of mind. And you may wonder, wait, what do you mean by a fortune state of mind? First of all, I must say it's not your ordinary fortune. It's spelled I-V-T-U-N-E, right?
That's it.
And as we talk about or encourage a fortune state of mind, we're really encouraging our listeners to develop and become a better self in many different aspects of life. And for us, those aspects include the 5 pillars that we even live by as a couple.
That's it.
We refer to them as the 5 F's.
5 F's.
And they are
Faith,
family,
fitness,
finance, and fun.
Sing it out. Sing it out. There we go.
Y'all didn't hear that run, did you?
Uh-huh.
I got to have ready for that one for y'all. But today we have an awesome guest and we have a spectacular topic. But again, we wanted to open it up, let you know what we're all about, what our podcast is about. And although it's called Date with the Dorseys, it doesn't mean it's only about relationships.
That's key.
It's key.
Now, we do touch on relationships.
Absolutely.
Whether your personal romantic relationship or relationship with your family, friends, colleagues, or others.
Right. All the ships.
All the ships.
So with that being said, make sure that you do follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Dim Dorn Dorseys, or email us at support@fortuneenterprise.com. And remember, fortune is spelled I-V-T-U-N-E, enterprise.com. Now, we got all that housekeeping out the way.
Yes.
It's time to jump into this topic.
Let's jump right in.
So today's topic is the climb. More so, the climb. What about the climb?
Yeah, what about it?
What about it? When it's not lonely at the top.
Now, you always hear that it's lonely at the top, but often there are other people involved on helping someone get to that top.
Absolutely.
Or helping them achieve, or even pulling them up or holding them up into that top position.
Absolutely.
So I think this is a very unique spin on a commonly discussed topic. So it's going to be great. I'm excited.
Yes. And so that leads us right into the introduction of our spectacular guest.
Yes. So we have with us today, no drum roll necessary, Mr. Trey Godfrey. He is a career entrepreneur, investor, and speaker. I think his speaking profile is fairly large. I mean, understanding the guests that he's been able to present in front of, whether if it's from high schools, college, going to prisons, you name it, from ESPN as a particular client that he's assisted, or Disney. And I know Mr. Godfrey will keep me honest as I breeze through his bio here. He's also, as an investor, he's been responsible for a lot of the developments that you see in downtown Baton Rouge. But more importantly, I think his current role as the executive director of the 100 Black Men of Metro Baton Rouge, where in his role, in his capacity, he's been able to amass one of the greatest, highest revenues that the chapter has been able to see thus far. So with Mr. Godfrey, he's also a graduate of Tulane University. I'm very proud to hear and even be able to say that myself, Tulane University, as a great beneficiary of such of a product as Mr. Godfrey. With that being said, I'll let him add on to that to highlight some of the other key accomplishments and things that he's been able to bring to the world. Mr. Trey Godfrey.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for having me. I have been looking forward to my date with the Dorseys for quite a while now. So certainly an honor to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the beautiful introduction, Floyd. it's listening to you say those things brought back some memories. I started my career as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, and was 25 years old, fresh out of graduate school, trying to figure life out, and had some opportunities to get in front of some audiences. The first time that happened, I was at a middle school and gave a graduation speech, after which the person who invited me handed me a check. And that was the first time I ever realized that people got paid to do that. And so you all know how the entrepreneur mind is. You see, when there's a market for a product, somebody's got to supply it. Yeah. And so that started my speaking career, and had the opportunity to travel the country. College campuses, high school campuses, like you mentioned, even went into prisons, not as an inmate, but as a speaker.
Let's clear that up, right?
Let's be clear. And then even sustained and cultivated some big time clients like ESPN, like Disney, like Cisco, Monster Worldwide, and a couple of their subsidiary companies. From there, went into business with my father and one of his business partners in the world of commercial real estate development, where we, after about 6 years of some really, really hard work and trying to figure things out, became an overnight success, and contributed to the revitalization of downtown Baton Rouge. And now I sit as the first executive director in the history of 100 Black Men of Metro Baton Rouge. We've been around for 27 years, and this year has been a banner year for us. We were named Chapter of the Year in the 100 Black Men of America chapters, which encompasses 102 chapters of this organization worldwide. And also, as you mentioned, we had our largest revenue year by far this past year. We've doubled our revenues in the past couple of years, which is saying a lot, while also doubling our capacity of programming for our students. So that's just a little taste.
Just on that, though, you're speaking about the revenues and doubling, and as many people here are in their own professional worlds and they're thinking about business development and how to increase revenues, what's the secret sauce, right? There's, and again, you don't have to give us all, give us everything, but there's something about the way you were able to do that in such a short period of time. What were some of the key points, or maybe things that others in their respective professions could take away from your journey in that space?
Absolutely. So one of the keys for me coming into this organization was, we're going to treat this like a business. And every business person understands the principles of business development. There are no secrets you have to sell. In order to sell, there are some things that you have to understand about human psychology, yours and others. In the nonprofit space, though, it's a little bit different, because your customer base is not your revenue base. And so if I were running a business, if I were marketing a product or a service, those users of the product or those consumers of that service are where my revenue comes from. Mm-hmm. But that's actually bifurcated in the nonprofit world, because the people who we are here to serve are not the people from whom we derive revenue. Mm. And so what it creates then is a situation, first off, and I learned this very, very early on, when you're asking is just like selling. And basically you are selling the idea that you're making the world better. And that's what people in that world really want to buy. And so they make investments into the organization. Now, of course, going back to sales and psychology, people give to people, not to organizations. And so the relational aspect of that can never be understated. The ability to deal with people is a greater commodity than any other commodity on this planet, be it oil, be it data, be it whatever. If you can deal with people and deal with people well, then you'll have opportunities. And so
Yeah, awesome. I know, Dr. Jatan, you can certainly relate with your nonprofit organization and some of the challenges, as well as some of the victories that you've been able to claim thus far.
Absolutely. First off, I describe this as a spectacular gift, but I think I need to make up a word, and it's going to be splendiferous, because you have already, lit up the mic per se, with all of your experience and things that you've shared thus far, I know the listeners want to continue to tune in. But back to Mr. Dorsey's point there, when you talk about building the relationships and psychology and sales and all of that stuff, one of the things that we often say is nurture before you need. So when you mention that these relationships are important and that it's not that you're selling to, a particular product or service, but it's getting that money for that person, what have you done from a perspective of building relationships to encourage others to want to even donate to your organizations?
That was one of the most difficult things because I come in with a lot of relationships and a lot of relationships from the majority community, while I run an organization that focuses on young Black males. Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest questions was, how do I get a community to become interested and invested in the success of young Black males, even though their attention is always somewhere else? And so those relationships were key in the very beginning, just to be able to get someone's attention and say, here's what I'm doing now, and here's what this means. Here's what this organization does. So in that relationship cultivation, first phase was just beginning to develop some awareness. This is who we serve. This is why we're here. And here are some of the outcomes that we aim to achieve. And then from there, whether it's a text message to say, hey, I just thought about you. How are you and the family? Yeah. Or it's a phone call saying, hey, why don't you come and check out one of our programs? Or it's an invitation to a banquet. Or it's a Christmas card saying, we at the organization, we're thinking about you. Keeping people front of mind, not in a manipulative way, but just in a way that says we're friends, we care. And then development in the nonprofit world, conventional wisdom says it takes 7 substantial touches before someone will give. And so it's being very, very consistent with those touches. Every salesperson will tell you how valuable those touches and those relationships are. And then when it comes time to convert, one has to have enough courage to ask, make the ask. You believe enough in what you're doing. You have to believe enough in it to be able to have a hard conversation. Yeah. And I mean, asking for money is never a real easy thing, but when you truly believe in what you're doing and for whom you're doing it, it becomes a lot easier.
I think that certainly crosses over for our listeners that, maybe you're not in the nonprofit world, or maybe you're not an entrepreneur and you're in a corporate structure. At some point, you have to develop and nourish those relationships. And then if you're looking to progress, you're looking for more money, you're going to have to make that ask. And so you certainly want to have that momentum behind you, and not to manipulate or any type of, deceitful way or anything like that. However, you do want to make sure that you are laying the foundation so that you're putting yourself in position. So when the ask comes, that you're, certainly on the best terms of being able to receive what it is that you're looking for. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also good that you pointed out the fact that, there may be several touches before you get to that yes. And many could, easily get turned off by that first no and just completely give up and not ask again, or not even ask a new person again. So I like the way that you highlighted that. How beneficial has that been for you to continue to push even after a person may have said no, or maybe they just said no for now, right? So how did you respond to that, and what was your take?
It's always no for now. No is always temporary. And people who've been in sales long enough will tell you it takes a whole lot of them to get to a yes. And that's okay. One of the main things that I really try to make sure, though, is that when it comes time for money to be exchanged, that it's as natural as possible. And I want it to be someone else's idea. I want it to be that other person's idea. Yes, I am there to convert. And yes, at the end of the day, it is transactional. However, I want it to be as natural as possible so that, and I've had a lot of instances like this, before I've had a chance to ask, the other party has said, here's what I'd like to do. And sometimes it's because of the work of the organization. And for some, they'll say, here's what I want to do for you. Now you go and celebrate this and you go and do well. Donor psychology can take up a whole lot of days at a conference. And, it's something that everybody who works in the sales world or the nonprofit development world really strives and aims to understand.
Yeah. And to your point too, the donations may not always be monetary, right? It could be time, it could be items or whatever it is that they feel in their heart to donate to support the cause, right? What
yeah,
you gonna say?
that's it. No, yeah, I was gonna switch gears just slightly.
Yeah.
And understanding, looking at your bio, and knowing that you were a student, right, at Tulane University, and you went off and began speaking after that, and then you had different pivot and the change of careers thereafter. And I'm sure you're still speaking and doing a lot of great things. But at each stage, I'm sure you had some level of success or that you were successful. How do you see that transition from high school to college to speaking to even the great work that you're doing now, at the success at each level? How did you see that transition for you and your time and your tenure so far?
That's a great question. I was able to cultivate some amazing relationships at the Tulane University.
There we go.
And, a few very close friends and I had a conversation similar to this last week. One of them made the point, how you do anything is how you do everything. And that truly speaks to the character of a person. And so when I look back from high school to college, from college to grad school, from grad school into the entrepreneurial world, into the nonprofit space, there have been a lot of successes along the way. And for part of my mentality is that success is inevitable, because success for me is about the process. Like everybody, I've been watching the documentary The Last Dance, which chronicles the 1990s, particularly 1998 Chicago Bulls. And great head coach Phil Jackson made a point on one of the episodes. He said, you only become a success at the moment that you've done something successful or that you've had some successful events. Now, he said that at the beginning of a season, trying to motivate a squad coming off of a championship so that they wouldn't rest on their laurels. Last year's efforts won't win this year's championship. But when he said that you're only a success at the moment of the successful event, I really had to chew on that for a while. I understand where he was coming, but I don't see success that way. I don't see success as episodic. Mm-hmm. There's no one thing, no one day. And the reason I say it is this, is because at every level, whether it was high school winning state championships or in college winning bowl games, or signing books, doing a book launch party, or doing a ribbon cutting at a brand new hotel. At all of those events, that said success. But after each one of those events, there for me was just that feeling of emptiness. Like, all right, we did it. So this is it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
In my own mind, I can remember thinking February 11th, 2011, when we opened Hotel Indigo downtown Baton Rouge, the first and still only boutique hotel in the city of Baton Rouge. And we celebrated so hard. And after the fact, it was really empty. It was fleeting. And I just thought to myself, like, this can't just be it. And so what you really begin to realize is success is not in what you accomplish at the end of the process. Success is what you become as a result of the process. Mm-hmm. You'll hear a whole lot of speakers talk about aiming at goals that are so high that you'll have to become more than you already are in order to achieve that. Les Brown said it really, really well when he said the problem with most people is not that they aim too high and they miss. The problem with most people is that they aim too low and they hit. And when you aim too low, or when you set some goal that you know you're going to achieve or that's easy to achieve, you don't become anything. And so that there's that. And so the true success is in what you become what you have to become or what you push out of yourself in order to accomplish that thing. And that's made going after new successes far more palatable. It makes me drive harder because there's no just one thing that you're trying to get. And the competition is not between me and that thing. The competition is between me and me yesterday.
Yeah, that's good. And I like the way you reference Les. I shouldn't just call him that like I know him, right? Les Brown.
I'm sure you can call him up anytime. Yeah.
But it also reminds me of a quote from Jim Rohn where he says, "Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better." And so I like how you kind of built upon the fact that we have to develop as we're going towards those various successes. So not just going through, but growing through it. So with that being said, what would you say were some of the challenges maybe that you experienced on the way to your successes?
Oh gosh, plenty. I can give you a lot. I just want to give you a quick story that really speaks to the point that you just made. Never forget, a buddy of mine who lived down the street back in high school and I were at my next door neighbor's house shooting basketball one day. We're doing all these kind of dunks. And so my dad got home. And
hold on 1 second. Stop.
Wait. I was about to say.
I know it's probably inappropriate to cut off a guest in the middle of a story, but I have to just take a pause for the calls and say, all right, so you were dunking.
I was athletic in my younger days.
Okay, all right. Okay.
So, and as I progress through the story, you'll have an epiphany.
All right.
So, you know, my dad pulls up in the driveway. So I run across the yard, said, "Dad, come watch my buddy and I do these dunks." And so I go and I do this reverse slam. And so, you know, my dad stood there and then he just kind of put his suit coat over his shoulder and walked right in the house. And so later on, you know, I came in the house and like, "Dad, you know, you seem pretty unimpressed." But not only was he unimpressed, he was actually a little bit insulted, right? That I would point that out and waste his time watching that because the goal was 9 feet tall. And so, yeah, you just did this phenomenal thing, but you lowered the goal to allow you to do that. So where's the achievement in that? Where's the greatness? Where's the excellence in that? There is none. Getting to your last question about challenges. There always have been. I left the road speaking, right, to join my dad and his business partner. They had just set up a consulting company called Centrinics and a law firm. And then real estate development literally happened. My dad stepped in to keep a property owner from tearing down a historically significant property downtown in Baton Rouge. And then we stepped in and bought the property and decided to develop it. Well, my father and his business partners are attorneys. I was this fresh out of grad school motivational speaker. None of us were developers. So somebody had to learn all that it took in order to go about a successful development. And as the low man on the totem pole, that was me. That's when I really learned resourcefulness, because for whatever piece of information there is that you need to find out, there's a way to find it out. You just have to go get it. And so it was this seminar, it was that course. And so loaded up on as much information as I could to be an asset to the company. That was an amazing challenge though, because going from not having been a business major, I didn't go to business school, don't have an MBA, and now have to sit at a desk and look at development performance and revenue projections, looking at balance sheets and P&L statements and trying to figure out how all of this stuff worked was an amazing challenge. But that made me something throughout that process that I needed to become in order to succeed in that world and beyond. Anything that you really want to go after that's worth it is going to be full of those challenges. How we react to those will tell you about ourselves.
I think that target for becoming seemed like it's moving, right? In the scenario you just gave, I'm sure years before that, you didn't say, I want to become this or I want to become that. So like, how does that really work in a world that's ever changing and we're always, I guess, growing in one way or another? Like, how does that target of becoming really truly becomes a goal?
Yep. It always moves, and it always should. So there are those who will say, follow your passion, find that one thing that you're passionate about, and just go after it. Well, I think that's great, but that's not me. I've always been a polymath. I've always been interested in a lot of things, and I've always been good at a lot of different things. And so for people who are like me, who may not just have that one thing that jumps out at them that they should do for the rest of their lives, I'd say, instead of focusing on follow your passion and all of that, I'd say follow your curiosity.
Mm.
Because that will push you into the learning and into the growth that you need that'll take you wherever it is. I consider myself an entrepreneur and always have. What the latest preneur is will always change. What direction it goes will always change. The growth that it takes in order to succeed at very high levels in whatever arena will always require more studying, more striving, going after more knowledge, as it should. I'm reading right now a book by Charlie Munger, who is the lesser known and slightly less wealthy partner of Warren Buffett. And he talks a lot about the people who he studies. And he's got so much respect. I was reading how much respect he had for one of the figures who he studies, because into the gentleman's 80s, he was learning new instruments. And I think that if we strive to do more, to have more, to be more, as I can imagine your listeners do, that process of becoming is always ongoing.
Right. I think that one of the key parts to becoming is that step of doing, right? And one of the byproducts of becoming, then you're able to have. But I don't think the doing ever really stops as long as you're striving to become, and as long as you're becoming. The having is always there at arm's reach. It's awesome.
I like how you talked about the following your passion, because I like to think that people probably consider me to be a Jamaican, because I do a little bit of this and that, right? And some people understand it, some people don't. And then to your point, as we are becoming, I found that, through achieving my success, is what I defined it as, I was not often enough celebrating as I was achieving, because I was always looking for that next thing, setting the standard higher and higher, while everyone else around me was like, wait, hold up, did you realize what you just did? And so that leads me to my next question for you. Like, how do you celebrate, or do you even celebrate, as you meet those milestones towards your success?
Yeah, like even in your situation, you said you cut the ribbon, on this new development, this new hotel downtown, like something that hadn't been done, a boutique hotel. Like
it just glazed over.
Right. So how do you find time to celebrate in your moments, even if it's a moment that you just really become something more, or achieve something more? Like, how do you celebrate that?
I, by all means, I'm a very flawed person, and that's one of my tics. In, I guess it was 2013, my now wife was, I guess she was my girlfriend then.
Okay.
We were dating, and was named top 40 under 40 leaders in the city of Baton Rouge. And so there was a banquet and everything else, and she was really excited because we didn't really get out much. And so she said, yeah, now we actually get to celebrate something. And I'll never forget, like, the look of confused disappointment after that banquet when she thought that we'd go celebrate or do something else. And
You said that was a celebration.
I one day I'm going to write a memoir, which is going to be for the people in my family who come after me, and it's going to be called "Wear Your New Shoes Home from the Mall." And that's one thing that's so different between my wife and me. When she was young, she went to the mall, she wanted those shoes, she got them, and she put them on right away. For me, I got the new shoes and they stayed in the box. And then I took them out the box and home, and they stayed in the closet with the paper and the toe of the shoe until I was ready to unveil them on the world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I found myself doing that with a lot of different things. Do it with the fancy eating utensils and everything else. And so I have to ask myself sometimes, like, yo, what are you waiting for?
Mm.
Even at those points of quote unquote success, I don't stop to say, wow, this happened. Wow, I deserve a pat on the back or whatever it is. And it's something that my wife pointed out to me, you know, which I really appreciated. And it's just something that's never been comfortable because in my mind, psychologically, there's always something next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm ready to get to it.
Now you make me go back to one of your earlier stories about lowering the goal to 9 feet from when you were much younger. I'm just curious if that, did that transfer over to now to say, hey, did I really lower the standards, or should I be pushing more? Should I be pushing myself to achieve more, to
Mm.
reach that level of satisfaction, basing off that story where it's like, you thought it was good, but nah, you have a whole lot more in you. So I'm curious
That's,
if there's anything to carry forward from that one.
yeah, now that you say that, I really wouldn't doubt it. And that's very astute of you to bring that up. My dad's personality was, he was a great poker player, because at times when he was even really excited and really impressed, he never showed it. And so that's something I kind of internalized is, unless it's something absolutely exceptional, superlative, I expect that.
Yeah.
I would bring home good grades from school and was never really celebrated because you were supposed to bring good grades home from school, and my folks were not going to celebrate doing something that you were supposed to do. And so that's something that I, over time, kind of internalized. And again, like I said, in Jatan, you'll appreciate this, is it's something that my wife pointed out in me. And so it's something that I got to improve on.
Mm-hmm. So you have to call out the fact that one of your successes was upgrading your now wife from the girlfriend you referenced earlier too.
That's it. It's not girlfriend, it's wife. Nice.
Right.
Speaking of the wife and then the family, I know you're very busy with all of the endeavors that you're involved in, but also how do you balance that with, the wife, the children, and then as well your continual path of becoming? How do you balance?
That's an excellent question. And that's something that I had to begin to reframe. And it was based on a struggle I was having because I had very little balance. I became executive director of 100 Black Men of Metro Baton Rouge in March of 2018 and dove headfirst into that work. And that looked like some really, really, really long days. Had one child at the time, now have another baby. And what I've had to reframe that away from balance into harmony, because there never will be complete balance. By necessity, there cannot be. There are times when you really, really have to go hard work-wise, and there are times when you say that's not even, it's not on the back burner, it's not even on the burner, and we're going completely hard as a family only. And listening and being, and you'll enjoy this term, being in tune enough.
Got it.
But listening to the rhythm of your family, for me, listening to the rhythms of our goings and our comings and how we deal with one another, and striving to create harmony there. Balance is as an entrepreneur, as a chief executive, is not something that I'll ever be able to have steady. TD Jakes said it well once. It's like riding a motorcycle. When you are riding in a straight line, it's easy having two people on that motorcycle because you're heading in the same direction and you add some weight and some stability to it. Where it becomes tricky is when you go into curves. And what has to happen is you all have to be leaning into that curve together. Because if the person behind you on a motorcycle is not if they're leaning to the right and you're turning left, then they're going to be scraping themselves up off the ground. You've got to lean into those curves together, and that's where the harmony comes in. Because on those different rhythms where those curves come up or where you feel the necessity, well, then you have to be able to begin to self-regulate and course correct and say, well, there's something that needs to come off the plate in order to focus here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear so many, corporate organizations now, especially, well, I guess for at least the last 10 years or so, one of the main call outs was work-life balance. We need to create work-life balance. And at the same time, we want to increase profitability and we want to make sure our stakeholders are, are in a good position. But, we want to create work-life balance. And I think just as you laid out so well, I think the approach is just that harmony. At times, we really have to go hard and press the pedal to the metal here at work. And it, for some, it may be month in or at other times of a given month or year, depending on the cycle. However, there may be something that comes up pressing with the family, and I need to really press hard pedal to the metal there, but it's not necessarily finding that balance, but it's maybe more so finding the harmony as you laid out. So I think that's great.
That's good. So as we wrap this thing up here.
We're wrapping up already?
I know, it was getting so good.
Really?
It really was.
I feel like we just got started. I still have like 30 more questions here.
Well, how about this? We squeeze in one more question and then we go into our dose of Dorsey. But before we do that, for listeners that may be just hopping in, this is Date with the Dorseys. If it's your first time, it won't be your last. And we are here talking about the climb, going specifically into the details behind success, the challenges, the wins, the losses, the celebrations, and lack thereof. So continue to tune in as we get to the next question. Did you have another one?
I just around competition, but before we close things out, we certainly have to have you back again because again, I truly have like literally about 30 more questions, and the more you talk, the
Maybe
more and more is
wife
added to my
time,
list.
right?
Yeah, we have to bring the wife in because I'd be very interested in the times during quarantine, how the impact on the relationship, the family, and things of that nature. So I'd be curious to hear her perspective, her point of view, truly on that. But knowing that you were truly a competitor, former athlete, ball player, I'm sure you'll still coin yourself as an athlete. From that level of competition, how do you take that from something that you've done as a child, growing up through college, playing sports, and even coaching? How do you transfer that over? And I know we didn't mention the coaching aspect even in your bio, but as a coach, how do you transfer that over into your professional life and work?
That is one awesome question. And it's something that's been in conversation because of the Last Dance Chicago Bulls documentary, with as much time is spent talking about competition with Michael Jordan and his philosophy on competition. It's tough because as an athlete, we are conditioned to compete against somebody else, against some other team or some other individual. And having done that in grade school and high school and college, coaching in college, one of the ways that I scratched that competitive itch in previous years was I went to my old high school as a volunteer assistant football coach, staying close to the game and staying close to competition. Now that I've reached the point where I am not embedded with any sport whatsoever, but still have a competitive nature within me, that's been a struggle. One thing that I've had to resolve within myself, though, is now this thing is me versus myself. For everywhere that I want to go in life, it's me versus me yesterday. And that's what's going to drive me. It's not preparing to play a football game against LSU next week. Or it's not preparing to coach the next game. It's preparing to get to the next place that I want to be. And am I better than the man I was yesterday? Did I take the right steps? Did I do the right things? That's where the competition is for me right now. Now the athletic side, I'm glad you described me as athletic because I didn't have to say that.
We'll have to ask the wife. I don't know,
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, one of the ways as an athlete or as a former athlete that I'm still able to scratch part of that itch, though, is by staying in shape. One of your F's deals with fitness, one of your 5 pillars, and that's something that's quite important within my house as well. And so I still compete against myself in a very objective way because numbers don't lie. And so, am I working out? How many times did I work out this week? How many sets? How many reps? How much weight? Am I progressing? And in that way, I'm still able to challenge myself. It's just that I'm no longer competing against another person or another team. Me versus the man looking back at me.
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
especially in these times with social media, and people are so engulfed in what they see on social media, which most of the time isn't accurate or true, or the actuality of how people are living. And then, going into, I know we're both Jamaican, so people are looking into expounding their experience and their expertise in entrepreneurship, and may see other people doing similar things and say, oh, wait, I can't do it because that one person is doing that thing. Not realizing how large the world is and how many people we have in the world. And you will deliver that thing different than the next person. So I love the way that you highlighted that your competition is you yesterday.
And becoming, right? I think the key part is just that becoming part. Am I becoming better? That sense of be. I couldn't stress that enough. I think you for putting it the way you did.
Yeah.
It was well said and well received. But
yeah. So listen, we really appreciate you for saying yes to us today, because you poured into us even. So I know you just, spilled a whole bunch of teacups over to other people that are listening. And even more so, typically we say that, when we talk about the 5 F's, that our episodes are not always about all 5 F's. You may get 1, you may get 2, or a combination, but let me tell you, we hit on all 5
we certainly did.
in this episode. Let me make sure I put that on the record. But thank you again. Any final thoughts before we go into Dose of Dorsey that you'd like to leave the folks with? But also in that, make sure you let them know how they can contact you if you'd like to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, it was an absolute treat to be on with you. Thank you so much for the invitation. And the next time, if there is a next time that you ask, next time will definitely be a yes as well. The last thing that I'd like to just encourage everybody to do is to adopt a lifestyle of learning. Charlie Munger calls it studying the imminent and the imminent dead. And so he's very desirous of learning from ancient cultures, and then taking that philosophy and putting into his investment world. I typically read The Imminent Alive, but find those people, not necessarily even in your own field, but those people who you define as successful. Success always leaves clues. Mm-hmm. The end process of the end of someone's thought process in their book becomes the beginning of your own. So find those opportunities to continue to pour into yourself.
Nice. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what do we have for the Dose of the Dorseys?
So, Dose of Dorsey is a real quick poem about success, and you all feel free to add in anything at the end if you'd like. So, the road to success is not straight. There is a curve called failure, a loop called confusion, speed bumps called friends, red lights called enemies, and caution lights called family. But if you have a spare called determination, an engine called perseverance, insurance called faith, and a driver called God, you will make it to a place called success.
Who's the author?
That's unknown. I think it's Nadira, but I don't want to give her all the credit just yet. But it was published in July 2008.
Nice.
So with that,
Closeout Queen.
Thank you.
Let's
I was waiting. You got to call her so she can show up. Closeout Queen is here. And again, thank you all for tuning in for yet another Date with the Dorseys. Again, this episode was about the climb. specifically as it aligns to success. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Them Darn Dorseys. You can also email us at support@fortuneenterprise.com. Remember, Fortune is spelled IVTUNE, enterprise.com. With that being said, this has been awesome.
Awesome.
Like, I really want to get another, hour or so of this.
Yeah, we will. I trust you.
Let's do it.
Right. But for now, we are going to say bye. And this is just an appetizer of the next time around. So make sure you continue to tune in. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Develop a fortune state of mind. Time for a date with. Time for a date with. A date with the Dorseys.